Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we have somebody on the show today who's going to help us with something that, quite frankly, we all need some support and assistance with. Karen Martin was born and raised in a small steel town 30 miles outside of Pittsburgh. Her childhood household was filled with business-minded people. Her father owned several businesses. Her mother was a buyer for a children's clothing store, and her younger brother began exhibiting his entrepreneurial spirit in his teens with an innovative approach to shoveling snow from sidewalks. Because Carolyn excelled in math, her guidance counselor urged her to pursue medicine. She headed to Penn State. However, she learned about the long path through medical school and residency. So that made her be drawn to microbiology instead to become a licensed clinical lab scientist. But she also liked people. And so her lab career had her spending most of her time interacting with Petri dishes and autoclaves and analyzers. She landed on teaching because teaching undergraduate courses at California State University gave her that people connection. And while pursuing a master's degree in education, she was able to get that mix of elements that she liked, but found out that education really wasn't her place because she didn't care for the slow-to-change academia. Armed with a master's degree and a growing interest in wellness and preventative medicine, she moved to L.A., and that's Los Angeles, not Lower Alabama, where she took a good job with HealthNet. She moved to another organization and was charged with building an operation from scratch. But at 30 years old, Karen found her true passion: business management and performance improvement. In 1993, she was about to be promoted to VP and decided no longer did she want to climb that corporate ladder. She didn't want to work for someone else anymore. Over the last 30 years, Karen has grown what is now TKMG Inc., from a solo consultancy with local clients into a global firm with a team of consultants and support staff who focus on helping organizations become outstanding. Her love of teaching continues to manifest through her hands-on coaching of leaders and improvement teams and through her 5 books, 2 of which are Shingo Awards winners. And her latest book, Clarity First, is her most provocative to date and is garnering deep praise. Though she owns a home in Dallas, Karen is often in the air or on the ground working with clients across the globe. Karen Martin, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am. Hi, Jim.
I'm glad you're here today. But I've given my Legion a little bit about you. But can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
You know, just recently, I've been seeing this pattern in clients where there's just this very vague sense from front lines all the way up to senior leaders on how to properly escalate. And so I'm finding over and over and over, front lines are not escalating quickly enough to their leadership team when things are going amiss. And leaders are not clearly identifying what is an escalatable, issue to bring to them. And so leaders are often very much in the dark. And so I actually don't know where this is going yet. This is very recent. And so I'm going to start with a couple of posts and just, work out my ideas in writing and then figure out, is it a book? I don't think escalation is a whole book, but I don't know yet. So it's a common problem.
What you're talking about right there is something that in the contact center industry that I'm involved with so heavily is quite common. And when I look at this from somebody who's been on the front line, helps leaders develop on the front line, those frontline supervisors in the Call Center Coach Academy, is we find a lot of times that, the metrics and the processes and processes that are put in place essentially just make the job one to which my responsibility is just to get the work in and out.
Yeah.
Is it to fix the system?
Yeah, I think that's a very big problem. The lack of standardization and written criteria for when do you escalate and when do you not, and those types of things help a lot. But the other thing that is just, I'm a big fan of W. Edwards Deming, the father of total quality management, and have long believed, very much like he believed, that fear is really at the core of a lot of dysfunction in organizations. And the fear of escalation, I just had a conversation with a junior-ish improvement professional at a client, and something was going amiss that she wasn't escalating. And I asked her why. And, her first answer was what I commonly hear is, well, I think I should be able to take care of this. But there are things because of your level in the organization. If you don't have the authority to push someone to commit or to deliver something that you're asking for, then you have to escalate. So it's that fear or feeling like you're not going to look like you're doing your job or whatever, or throwing people under a bus. That's there, but you can't get work done if you don't have a proper escalation strategy.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that this is a multifaceted problem.
It is.
Without a doubt. And I would also probably go as far to say that it's a problem that is unique to the DNA of the organization in which it is the problem, or is a problem.
Yep.
And
I agree.
Without a doubt, I mean, I think you touch on a lot of these things in a little bit more of that strategic way, getting down to the tactical, looking at escalation specifically in the book Clarity. And for me, you look at clarity from really an ecosystem perspective, I think. And that is, it's clarity in communication. It's clarity in those processes and in those procedures. Yes. It's clarity in the intent. There's just so many different aspects of clarity that for me, I really didn't look at the full scope of it like you did in this book. So what brought you to having to do or look at clarity from that perspective versus maybe just looking at just the escalation component?
It wasn't something I planned either. It was very interesting, and it was a much more difficult subject to write about than I thought it would be. So what happened was I had a book called The Outstanding Organization that's arranged around 4 common conditions or behaviors that I find often missing in organizations and are necessary for outstanding performance. And it's clarity, focus, discipline, and engagement. That clarity chapter, I got so much feedback from people saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea that we were operating with such a prevalent lack of clarity and what that was doing to us individually and collectively as an organization, and how much it was costing us. And one gentleman said, and he was a guy I knew, I was working with a client, he was kind of a big burly guy, not given to showing his emotions, and he wrote me this very heartfelt email and said that he actually cried when he was reading that clarity chapter because he felt somewhat not vindicated, but released from this not understanding why he felt so every day, and it's the first step is awareness, and the second step is doing something about it. So that spawned Clarity first, and I thought it'd be a simple book to write because it's one topic, but it was not. It was very difficult, actually.
Well, and for me, I think the complexity is just inherent in what we do, almost if not every day personally, but then also professionally. Because I just want to point out, you talk about something from a definition perspective that I think we all struggle with. And when I came to page 40 in this book, it talked about the different things in an organization that can cause a lot of these clarity problems, just as far as the initial step, the initial start, the foundational component. And we talk about the elements of mission, vision, values, and guiding principles. And to me, when I get to look at the definitions of these 5 things, I'm like, I want to use this in so many different ways because I think so many people get confused. So mission, is a statement of what, vision is a description of where you're headed. Values, provide clarity about the behaviors and work attitudes. Your guiding principles are more specific version of the values. And then purpose is a verb that reflects why you have a mission, vision, values, or guiding principles. I think everybody really needs to be reminded of these definitions on an ongoing basis.
Agree. I mean, and I've worked with hundreds, probably not thousands yet. I haven't added up all my clients, but hundreds of organizations now, and even organizations I used to be an employee at before I started my business. It's just, those seem like buzzwords, but they have precise meanings. But the meanings that you read about in books, even with, business management academics, not everyone agrees on what the word mission means, for example. And even, I've been working with some people who are experts in purpose. And what's interesting is in conversation, they'll talk about an organization's purpose, and I'll, kind of tip my head and say, that's actually their what. That's not why. And so it's tricky, but it's important to get clear on it so that it can drive every decision, every prioritization strategy, and even the overarching business strategy going forward.
So for me, I started thinking about standing and where do I stand and how do I know what to stand for, when to stand for it, all of those things. And if like you were just saying, if I am saying one word but yet defining it in a different way, therefore I can't make a stand.
Right. It's true. And ambiguity is the opposite of clarity. And ambiguity around these words does not help us at all in business or in life. And so I do hope that there'll be some sort of coming to a common understanding. And if someone needs to write the definitive book on each of these elements and why they're important, and I'm not sure it's me, but it's critical. The why, though, the purpose is so important, because product development decisions, for example, should be very aligned with why, not what. And a lot of times I see organizations spending a lot of time and money on new products that they're doing because they have the skill set to do so, and not because it aligns with their purpose, or not because the customers are really asking for it, or in the case of customers not knowing about something, even having good evidence that this is a problem to be solved, that this particular product would solve. And so getting clarity around all of that is fundamental and hard. It's not easy to do.
And I think it's also important to point out that when we start talking about this clarity, when you start talking about ambiguity and those things, they ultimately are foundational and create something that we all need to have, and that's trust.
Yes. Trust emanates from clarity. And if the number one thing that ruins trust is not really understanding where someone's coming from and not understanding what you're supposed to do. And, it's very costly to an organization. If you add up the minutes, hours, weeks, months, years of people trying to figure things out that could otherwise be far more clear, and, people can have rapid uptake of them, it's just an enormous expense that's unnecessary.
So it also is a scenario where having this clarity at this, strategic and visionary aspect and leading aspect of an organization, for you take it through the book through basically looking at all of your processes, evaluating, assessing from, that, like you were talked about, is this what we should be doing even though we may have the skills?
Right.
Is it going to really affect who are major, person that we want to affect, meaning the customer, right?
Right.
We're all in some type of customer facing, type of business. Even if we're in a government entity, we have stakeholders, we have constituents. We all have a customer. Sometimes they're not readily clear in front of us. Like
Right.
if I'm a manufacturer, my customer is actually my retailer or somebody who's selling my product and then I have users. So it can seem to be a little bit clouded, but the fact is that we all are serving somebody.
Right. And the why has to be directly tied to some sort of a problem that the product, whether a good or a service, solves. And it needs to be tied to something emotional. So, for example, I was talking with a car tire manufacturer, a leader at a car tire manufacturer, and I asked what they did. We make tires. And why do you do it? We make really good tires, was the answer. And I said, but why? Why do you make really good tires? And it took a long time for him to finally understand that it's building confidence in the customer that they're going to get from point A to point B without a flat tire, that they're going to be safe, that they're not going to have flats in the middle of the night in stranded in a remote road. All of those things that it doesn't have to be top of mind every single day in every single conversation in a business, but you do need to understand the verb or the emotion that any product is tied to in the customer, whether it's, to your point, a business customer or an individual customer, whether it's commercial, no matter what it is, there is some emotion. Your product should make life easier in some way or safer. And if we start going all the way to that, then first of all, it engages the employees in a very powerful way, but then it also drives better decision making.
Well, and you talk in the book about knowing thy customer, and you go into that to a great degree. But part of what you're talking about in the book is like, hey, essentially embed yourself and go, do some psychographic, type of studies and be there with them and see how they use your product. But everybody in the organization can't do that, right? So, I mean, if I'm a person who's in a customer, support or customer service environment, I don't have that luxury. All I know is they call me about these things. And I need to do these things. And I don't really know thy customer. And so then we also have an empathy problem, and we have an emotional intelligence, lack of connection, and all of those things. So how can an organization really know thy customer when they can't sit in their living room and see how they're using the product?
Video. One of the most effective things I've ever seen, it was a commercial, and it might have been during a Super Bowl game that I first saw. It was years ago, like probably a decade ago. It was a GE commercial about their healthcare division and about the equipment that these manufacturers, these guys on the front lines in a plant were making. And they actually took these guys in a bus out to talk with customers. And the customers, they just, all of a sudden, everything crystallized for them on why it was so important to get that bolt turned exactly right, and why it was so important to make sure that nothing left the line that had some sort of a problem, and all of those things that make the work far better quality, far more efficient. So, I am a huge fan of getting testimonials from the customers that aren't just fluff, not just sales stuff, but like, how is that product really helping? How is that service or that good really making a difference in that person's life? And, in industry, it's mainly safety. At least a lot of it is safety, but it's also work ease. And we should be striving first and foremost for safe and easier work environments because they're cheaper. They're better for people, and safer and easier work environments are less expensive to operate. And so it's, anyway, I could go on and on about this, but video is a very powerful medium that every single new hire could be exposed to, and maybe even reminders throughout the years that they're there.
And I would say that you have to have those reminders. I mean,
Yes.
that's how you really have it to be sustainable, because otherwise they'll get caught up. We all get caught up in that, hey, I have to do these things. Oh, I forgot about that.
Right.
Be a constant reminder.
Well, and one more quick thing. We've created this environment in customer service in many, many organizations that actually cuts the customer service rep off from the customer. And what I mean by that is, as a customer, so first of all, I know how businesses can run, and so I'm not necessarily the most patient customer when things aren't going well. And I don't ever blame the people, because it's the work systems that are there that are at fault, not the people. But oftentimes I'll say, hey, did you guys ever consider da-da-da-da, or could you please escalate this and, give some, get my voice up the ladder so that people in decision-making positions can consider this? And I almost always get, well, you could put that on our website. We have a form. And I'm like, why are customers expected to go do work to give necessary feedback back so that the people that are delivering goods and services can provide better value? Why is it that they don't believe their own people? And I have people tell me this all the time. They won't believe me, but if you put it on our website, they'll believe you. Well, that's just messed up, And so, anyway, it's just the wrong work environment. Those people are the ambassadors for the organization that are on the front lines in customer service. They know the customer more intimately than any VP or above will, and yet they're not listened to. And that breaks my heart.
But it is true. I mean, so the saying that I always talk about is that you can't be a prophet in your own land.
Yeah.
But then again, that's job security for you as a consultant, isn't it?
I guess. I mean, I would rather businesses run really, really well and I could retire. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to be done in business today. A lot.
Yeah, I think these are human problems. They're not just business problems.
Yes,
sure.
That is true.
Okay, so you also talk about in the book from what to why, and you have 3 different levels of being able to make that transition from what to why.
Yep.
And there's clarity within just these different levels. So you say level 1 is what do you do, right? What are the products, the market segments, who's your competitors? I mean, simple, very tangible things. Yep. And then it's what really do you do? What problems are you solving for?
Right.
Be very, very specific. And that is, why do you do it? Why does your organization do it? What are the goods, what as far as, is needed or desired and all of those things. And part of that is the customer contact, but it goes much, deeper than that, because especially today we're talking about societal, impacts. And, are you, the saying goes, I don't want to work as far as an employee for the customers that are best in the world. I want to work for a company that is the best for the world. We're seeing a lot of shift happening now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So why, from a why to, or what to a why? I mean, you said you even had an example of a consultant that was not able to really do this correctly, and we're keeping them anonymous, not naming names. But how do we actually take this and effectively apply this with where I am? I'm not getting it from up above. The leadership isn't doing it. They're not helping with this clarity. How do I start with me?
Well, it's a good question, because if you're all the way down at the front lines, it's very difficult to get enough insight into the operation in order to find that out. But the first thing would be raising the issue and having a conversation with the next, leader up the food chain, and see if you can get it up to the leadership level, because it really is senior leadership that needs to drive and make that an important point that they're constantly reminding people on the why. It's just, we are so product centric, and I'm talking about a good or a service as product. We're so product centric that we forget the people at the end of it all the time. And, I practice lean management in the work that we do. And that's all about providing greater value to the customer, but doing so in a way that's good for the business, good for the shareholders, good for the employees, good for the environment. And so the customer is at the center of it all. And yet we get, kind of tunnel vision on products. And that's having no clarity on the why makes it difficult to run a smooth operation.
So you also talk about some of this problem-solving issue. You talk about the system being broken, and you talked about Deming, and so you actually have an acronym that represents a pretty easy process to be able to follow, and you call it CLEAR. Clear. I think that works well.
Right.
Remember. So that's what the first C is. So it's the clarity, and then we have to learn, and we have to experiment, and then we have to assess, and then we have to roll out. So just give it at a high level, run us through that.
Yeah, so I practice underneath CLEAR is Plan, Do, Study, Adjust, PDSA, which was Deming's core way of getting people to solve problems more effectively. The problem with PDSA are the actual terms that acronym represents, because plan, people think, oh, okay, I'm going to make a plan to implement. No, that the plan is really figuring out what is the problem, why is it a problem, for whom is it a problem, how big is the problem, and then you get to root cause. What is the root cause or causes of the problem? And that the word plan doesn't really seem to say that. And so, over and over and over, I've been practicing PDSA and teaching people for 25 years now, and over I've seen that they struggle with it, which is why I came up with CLEAR to layer on top of PDSA with those specific questions that everyone should be asking in order to get, better problem solving at the end of the day. So that's the genesis of it.
Well, in our last episode of the Fast Leader Show, I had the opportunity to interview Doug Hall with Driving Eurekas, you wrote. You probably know Doug both of you are essentially disciples of Edwards Deming. Deming's, Dr. Deming's, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Deming. I thought Deming. Yeah, the S, it's Edwards Deming. It's a weird, W. Edwards Deming. So it's a weird plural on Edwards.
There we go.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I get my clarity on that. Okay, so when I started looking at your book and started looking at the systems thinking and the lean and all of those things that we need to do from an efficiency-based perspective, I also start thinking about his work in regards to innovation. And to me, I think the two need to go together.
Yeah. Yes. And it's very interesting because, lean comes from Toyota Production System. And then we learned that it wasn't just about how they produce, it's about all the ways that they make decisions. And now we finally understand it's also about the product. It's about the innovation that they're constantly, just going after it and after it and after it and making a high quality product as a result of that significant innovation. So innovation has been kind of left out of the lean vocabulary and discussion for all these decades that lean's been around, not because it doesn't exist and not because it doesn't drive almost everything Toyota does, but because we were peeling back, the layers of the onion, using an overwrought analogy, to understand what is it that they actually do and how do they do it. And it just took decades to get to the point where we're like, innovation is really at the core of all this. But it's not just, in a vacuum. That you have to have everything else work along with innovation in order to be a top performer.
Especially in today's world, without a doubt. Okay, so now what we're talking about here is just riddled with a whole lot of emotion. You even talked about it a second ago, meaning connecting with your customer. I mean, we have to do that clarity component so that we're connecting internally to that external. I mean, all of these things, they overlay and they relate to one another. But one of the things that we look at on the show are quotes to help give us a little bit of charge from emotion. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
One quote I like, and I don't know if I'm going to get this right. It's by Shigeo Shingo. He was the industrial engineer that codified a lot of the Toyota way that then became the way that Toyota operates. And so he has a hierarchy of what we should be striving for in terms of, this is just now operations design or work design. And it was easier first, which was intriguing to me. I think it was easier, safer, faster. Okay, I'm not being a good student, am I? It's easier, faster, safer, better. Oh no, that's easier, safer, better, faster. So we sometimes, lean gets this bad rap as being something you just speed up the work, and it's not at all. I mean, you don't speed up the work and then get poor quality or worse safety conditions. But the thing I loved about that quote was easier is first. And so when people, this is another thing that we see that kind of goes a little awry in organizations is, leaders kind of mandate processes and dictate how the work should be done when they're not the ones doing the work, and they're therefore not the experts in doing the work. And, if you go to a frontline person and say, we want to make this easier and have higher quality and have lower cost and have safer environment, they're innovative people with creative minds and souls, which is very engaging to get involved with. And I just love seeing them light up with these wonderful ideas when given the opportunity.
That's a very good point. And I also can say that, coming to a lot of these, conclusions and being able to make these pivots and make these adjustments and come like that comes because we've had mistakes and we've had to learn from them and get over them. And we talk about them on the show about, humps that we've had to get over and how it actually made us go into a better direction. And so, is there a story or a time that you can share where you've gotten over the hump?
Oh, the most practical humps have been financial, and it's been, when 9/11 occurred and when the 2008 mortgage meltdown occurred, both, actually 2008 was particularly painful because I had done that business thing that you should never do and have well more than, 50% of your revenue tied up in one industry. Never do that, because if that industry, hits a little bit of a glitch, then it affects your business. And so, like, literally in 2008, overnight, I think I had only financial services contracts at that time, and they pulled the plug on every consulting agreement they had, every training agreement. It was a knee jerk, but it was a necessary reaction to this shock that we were all experiencing. And I don't think I worked again for 6 months after 2008 hit. And, thank goodness I was a saver. Thank goodness I could get through it. But it was a very painful time, and you never knowing when it's going to come back and, when you're going to work again. So I took advantage of that and started writing more books. So I made lemonade out of my lemons.
Well, good move for you. And then you had the luxury to do that because you initially were that saver, right?
Yeah. And I'm actually going through a hump right now where it's a business model hump. And, I've had a lot of incredibly gifted and skilled 1099 contractors on my team for a long time because they're just, so skilled and they're easy to be able to pull in and out of projects as you need them. But I'm moving to a W-2 model now with employees because I want greater predictability and greater ability to have someone be available to me and not their own clients, because a lot of the 1099 people have their own businesses as well. So it's not easy making that transition from 1099s to W-2s.
So if you started looking about that whole, going to that risk component, talking about that 2008 thing, and if you were back then and you had a lot of W-2s, that would have actually been a whole dynamic.
That would have been a bad deal.
Most definitely. So when you start, looking at that, I mean, how do you prepare for, the next economic downturn, which it's not an if, it's a when.
Right.
How do you really make sure that you're mitigating or reducing, risks associated with that?
First of all, squirrel your money away. that tried and true save, because you never know when. And this is what businesses are struggling with. They're so they're strangled with debt that they don't have any flexibility when things don't go as well as. And every time we have flush economic times, everyone's like, woohoo, it's great. But to your point, it is going to be a matter of time. It's not an if, it's a when. So cash is important. And then the other thing is that, Toyota's been masterful during tough times of never laying people off. And so what they do is they've moved those people into other positions where they've not been able to spend time. In my case, business development, codification of our approaches, all kinds of things. But it takes cash to be able to do that. So to make that commitment to no layoffs and things like that. So I don't think you can grow a business very effectively without employees. It's just, I'm just now kind of facing that it's time to do it and do it in a big way.
Well, good for you. And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better.
All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the
Hump Day Hoedown.
Okay, Karen, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and you're going to give me robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Karen Martin, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Striving for perfection.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Listen, and you don't know it all.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Tenacity. Going after, like a dog going after a bone.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Listening.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners that could be from any genre? Of course, we're going to put a link to Clarity First and your other books on our show notes page as well.
Well, since we've been talking about why a lot, Simon Sinek's book, I think that's how you say his last name, Start With Why, was really one of the things that started getting me down the path of purpose, because none of my previous employers had really talked about it. And I didn't really understand how important it was, because we talk about mission, vision, values, not purpose. So I love Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus materials by going to Karen's show notes page, and that is at fastleader.net/Karen Martin. Okay, Karen, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25. And you've been given all the knowledge and skills that you have now, and you can take them back with you, but you can't take them all. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
That my job with a staff is to develop them. Not to, order them around and have them do my bidding, but my job is to develop people. I didn't get that early enough, and I now do, thankfully.
Karen Martin, thank you for joining us today. Can you let the Fast Leader Legion know how they can connect with you?
You can check out our website, tkmg.com, which stands for our older name, the Karen Martin Group.com. We've got webinars, social media connections there. I'm on Twitter, Karen Martin OpX. LinkedIn, Karen Martin OpX as in operational excellence. And the website's probably the easiest way because there's one-stop shopping there.
Karen, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and the Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump.
Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.